Another day, another story. In folklore, a mermaid is an aquatic creature, with the head and upper body of a female human and the tail of a fish. Mermaids appear in the folklore of many cultures worldwide, including Europe, Asia, and Africa. Welcome to Taibo Eminent Channel. Mermaids are sometimes associated with perilous events such as floods, storms, shipwrecks, and drownings. In other folk traditions, or sometimes within the same traditions, they can be benevolent or beneficent, bestowing boons or falling in love with humans. The male equivalent of the mermaid is the merman, also a familiar figure in folklore and heraldry. Although traditions about and sightings of mermen are less common than those of mermaids, they are generally assumed to coexist with their female counterparts. The male and the female collectively are sometimes referred to as merfolk or merpeople. The Western concept of mermaids as beautiful, seductive singers may have been influenced by the sirens of Greek mythology, which were originally half bird-like, but came to be pictured as half fish-like in the Christian era. Historical accounts of mermaids, such as those reported by Christopher Columbus during his exploration of the Caribbean, may have been sightings of manatees or similar aquatic mammals. While there is no evidence that mermaids exist outside folklore, reports of mermaid sightings continue to the present day. Etymologies. The English word mermaid has its earliest known attestation in Middle English. Chaucer, Nun's Priest's Tale, c. 1390. The compound word is formed from mere, sea, and maid. Merewif. Old English merewif is another related term, and appears once in reference not so much to a mermaid, but a certain sea hag, and not well attested later. It's mhg cognate merwip, also defined as meerweib in modern German, with perhaps merwoman a valid English definition. The word is attested, among other medieval epics, in the Nibelungenlied, and rendered meerwoman, mermaid, water sprite, or other terms. The two in the story are translated as Ansjokonur, sea women. Origins. The siren of ancient Greek mythology became conflated with mermaids during the medieval period. Some European Romance languages still use cognate terms for siren to denote the mermaid, e.g. French sirene and Spanish and Italian sirena. Some commentators have sought to trace origins further back into ancient Middle Eastern mythology. Sirens. In the early Greek period, the sirens were conceived of as human-headed birds. But by the classical period, the Greeks sporadically depicted the siren as part fish in art. Medieval sirens as mermaids. The siren's part fish appearance became increasingly popular during the Middle Ages. The traits of the classical sirens, such as using their beautiful song as a lure as told by Homer, have often been transferred to mermaids. Ancient Middle Eastern mythology. Depictions of entities with the upper bodies of humans and the tails of fish appear in Mesopotamian artwork from the Old Babylonian period onwards, on cylinder seals. These figures are usually mermen, kululu, but mermaids do occasionally appear. The name for the mermaid figure may have been Kuliltu, meaning fishwoman. Such figures were used in Neo-Assyrian art as protective figures, and were shown in both monumental sculpture and in small protective figurines. Medieval literature. Two prophetic merwomen, mhg Plum Merwip, Sigelinde, mhg Sigelint, and her maternal aunt Hadeberg, mhg Hadeberg, are bathing in the Danube River when Hagen von Tronje encounters them. Nibelungenlied, Adventure 25. They are called Sjokunar, sea women, in the Old Norse Thydrek saga. There is a swan maiden tale motif involved here. Hagen robs their clothing. But Grimm argued they must have actually been swan maidens, since they are described as hovering above water. In any case, this brief segment. Folklore of Britain and Ireland. The Norman Chapel in Durham Castle, built around 1078, has what is probably the earliest surviving artistic depiction of a mermaid in England. It can be seen on a south-facing capital above one of the original Norman stone pillars. Mermaids appear in British folklore as unlucky omens, both foretelling disaster and provoking it. Several variants of the ballad Sir Patrick Spens depict a mermaid speaking to the doomed ships. In some versions, she tells them they will never see land again. In others, she claims they are near shore, which they are wise enough to know means the same thing. Mermaids can also be a sign of approaching rough weather, and some have been described as monstrous in size, up to 2,000 feet 6'10 mem. Scandinavian folklore. Fru. The mermaid corresponds to Danish and Bokmål Norwegian havfru, whereas merman answers to Danish Norwegian havmand. As a side note, a supposed Old Norse havfru is the etymological source of Norman French havet for a man-snatching water sprite, according to one linguist. An early description of the havfru and her mate havman was given by the Danish bishop Pontoppidan, 1753. They were considered the mating female and male of the creature, inhabiting the North Sea, and their offspring was called marmail, var marmede, as repeated by later commentators. General characteristics. The beautiful Havfru of Scandinavia may be benevolent or malicious, and legends about her abducting maidens, cf. Infra, is given as a case of point for her malice. It is said the Havfru will avenge harm done to it, as in the Norwegian anecdote of one who was lured near the ship and had her hand cruelly lopped off on the gunwale. She caused a storm that nearly drowned the wicked sailor. Western European folklore. Melusine is a mermaid-like character from European folklore, cursed to take the form of a serpent from the waist down. Later depictions sometimes change this to a fishtail. At some point, possibly in the late 19th century, her name became attached to the two-tailed mermaid of heraldry. Eastern Europe. Rusalkas are the Slavic counterpart of the Greek sirens and naiads, often seducing sailors to their doom. The nature of rusalkas varies among folk traditions, but according to ethnologist D.K. Zelenin, they all share a common element. They are the restless spirits of the unclean dead. Chinese folklore. A merfolk race called the Di people Zui are described as populating its own nation in the Shanhaijing, classic of mountains and seas, compilation of Chinese geography and mythology, dating from the 4th century BC. The ancient work also included several types of human-headed fish, such as the chiru zai, or red roofish, as well as creature with some human-like qualities like the renyu, or human fish. Note that these are not of a specific gender, so they are not really conducive to being called mermaids, though some English, European writers might use mermaid as shorthand. Indian folklore. Suvanamacha and Hanuman. Mural at Wat Phra Kaeo, Bangkok. In Hinduism, Suvanamacha, lit. Golden Mermaid, is a daughter of Ravana who appears in the Cambodian and Thai versions of the Ramayana. She is a mermaid princess who tries to spoil Hanuman's plans to build a bridge to Lanka, but falls in love with him instead. She is a popular figure in Thai folklore. Reported sightings. Roman Lusitania and Gaul. In his Natural History 9.4911, Pliny the Elder remarked that a triton, merman, was seen off the coast of Olisipo, present-day Lisbon, Portugal, and it bore the physical appearance in accordance with common notion of the triton, according to a deputation from Lisbon who reported it to Emperor Tiberius. One Nereid was sighted earlier on the same Lisbon coast. Pliny remarks that contrary to popular notion, the true Nereids are not smooth-skinned in their human-like portions, but covered with scales all over the body. Their mournful songs at death have also been heard by the coastal inhabitants. Also, multiple Nereids had washed up on the shore according to the legatus, governor of Gaul, who informed the late Emperor Augustus about it in a letter. Scientific inquiry. The topic of mermaids in earnest has arisen in several instances of scientific scrutiny, including a biological assessment of the unlikelihood of the supposed evolutionary biology of the mermaid on the popular marine science website Deep Sea News. 5 of the primary reasons listed as to why mermaids do not fit current evolutionary understanding are: thermoregulation, adaptations for regulating body heat; evolutionary mismatch; reproductive challenges; digestive differences between mammals and fish; lack of physical evidence. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.